and welcome to another episode of Hey Mark, the podcast where I, Mark, get to have open and authentic conversations about things like mental health and self-development. And the reason I started this podcast is because I wanted to kind of basically reach out to those people that kind of have no hope for themselves, the kind of people that, feel like no matter what they do in this world, they're just not good enough. They always have to, or we always have to kind of add to ourselves or make ourselves feel better. Well, it'll just make ourselves better so that we can be good enough. And because that's kind of how I always felt in my life, I kind of want to reach out to the people that kind of feel like that now and let you guys know that no matter what it is that you're going through, life can and will get better for you. No matter what. And you just have to kind of keep pushing through and, basically do the types of things that I'm going to be discussing today. So on one of the most recent episodes, I kind of talked to you guys about a little bit about my past and my, my experience with depressive thoughts, depression, anxiety, and these kinds of feelings like that I've just basically went over. And if you haven't listened to the most recent episode, that I just recently had, the solo episode I'm talking about, not the episode that with Matt, you should go back and listen to both of those. Because I think there's a lot that we can learn from. I think there's a lot that we can kind of go over there. But I wanted to talk again about, one of the things that I maybe kind of missed or didn't really discuss too much about that little, the story time that I had about, my little 9-year-old self and the feelings of inadequacies and the feelings of not being good at anything naturally, not really being good at anything. That was where I kind of felt like, for a long time in my life. I discussed kind of this feeling of, if I'm not good at this thing, if I can't be good, then why try? And that was a thought that kind of plagued me for the majority of my life. I kind of always felt like that. I kind of felt like, I don't want anyone to kind of see me struggling. I don't want them to think that I'm not good at this thing. So I'm going to just show them that I'm not putting in effort so they can see that it's on purpose. None of this stuff is, it's not like I'm not good enough. It's just I'm not trying. That was kind of the impression I wanted to give people. And so for a lot of the time, in my high school years, whenever I was in a classroom, it was like, okay, then I'll just be the class clown. But, years and years and years of not applying myself and not trying in a lot of areas of my life, whether it be athletics or scholastics or, finances or anything. It was kind of just like this feeling of, I'm going to make sure that they know that I'm not trying so that it doesn't look like I'm failing. And this feeling of not being good enough still haunts me to this day. I think every single time I'm going to upload an episode like this, I'm like, fuck, I could have done that better. Or I could have done better on this. But I'm just going to make it seem like I'm not trying or I don't care. And then maybe people won't think that I'm failing at it. And that's again, it's pretty much still haunting me to this day. But I wanted to dig into that a little bit more because, essentially like what would happen is I'd look at, the end result, the result of my efforts, me trying my best, and I would think, this isn't good enough. I know it's not good enough, and so everyone else is going to think this isn't good enough. But what I struggled to see was, and what I still struggle with, because of kind of like these depressive thoughts that kind of make me feel inadequate, I think a lot of the times I look at my own efforts and I think, it's not even really worth the effort, or maybe no matter how much I apply myself, I'm not going to get a good result. And it's just always looking at the objective result. And for me, that's kind of hurt me a lot because, Especially if you're very critical of yourself or you have these kinds of thoughts, then you're always going to look at yourself and think, the result isn't good enough. I'm not good enough, and I'm never going to be good enough. There's never going to be a point where I'm satisfied. Like, yep, I did a good job. There's never going to be a point where I can sincerely, pat myself on the back. If you're always thinking, well, that's not good enough, I'm not good enough. This feeling of inadequacy is, I've gone from one end of the spectrum where it's like, I'm not going to fucking try at anything, to this other side of the spectrum where it's like, okay, I have to fucking expose all my own weaknesses and always work on them all the time. And though that's, helped, make me kind of more confident in some areas because I have been applying myself more and more and more, it doesn't solve the problem of, it doesn't solve the problem of actually dealing with the issues. It's just coming at it from the opposite side of the spectrum. And so a lot of the times, I can talk about in the past how I would try something and, maybe not be good at it at first and put in a little bit of effort until people saw me struggling, and then I kind of got up and quit. I was like, fuck this. I don't want people to see me struggle. And then it got to the point where it's like, okay, I'm going to do whatever I said I was going to do, but it's okay if people see me fail because I'll just maybe say that I didn't care as much or, I wasn't trying in that area. Because not only did I feel inadequate, but I felt inadequate, I guess I was just kind of plagued with this feeling. Yeah, like if it's not going to be the result I want, I'm going to try and make it seem like I didn't care. And a lot of the time we look back at the results and think, well, there's another thing that I fucking failed at. Oh, it's just another fucking episode I just recorded for my podcast that isn't good enough. But I'm just going to pretend that nonchalantly I don't care. When really we all care. Otherwise, why the fuck would we do any of the things that we do? Right? And so for me, I've been struggling a lot with this feeling because, well, I've dealt with it since I was a little kid, but I still deal with it now. I'm still in this kind of headspace where I'm inadequate. I'm not good enough yet, and I need to add to myself to make myself feel better. And that's a lot of the reasoning behind a lot of the things that I do now. Right? Like it's still to this day, an analysis of how can I get better? How can I be better? And there's a healthy amount of that we kind of all need because obviously none of us are perfect and we all have room for improvement and we should be trying to improve because the only way that we can improve this world, like I've been saying recently, is to improve ourselves. But I think a lot of the time we get stuck, or at least I get stuck, in this kind of like, I need to get this result. I need to get that result, or whatever it could be. And for me, what I've realized recently is, first off, to kind of lose a little bit more of this rigidity that I have in my mindset, which was brought to my attention by a few people in my life recently. And that's been rather difficult for me because, like I said, I've gone from this approach of, I'm not going to put any effort in because I don't want people to see me failing, to latching my identity onto this guy who, I've created in my own head, this identity where, I'm going to always be working. I'm going to always be working on myself. And then that kind of added a little bit more to the ego because it's like, oh, I'm going to be the guy that's always working on myself. And that's what makes me better than other people. When really, the world doesn't give a fuck. The world doesn't care. And so realistically, to find happiness, it's not about becoming, better or killing that past version of yourself or whatever fucking things I've said in the past. I'm starting to learn now, and this is like, again, this is a very recent discovery for me. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. But it's, true kind of confidence comes from appreciating your own effort, which is something that I always struggled with. A lot of the times when we go back to that kind of 9-year-old version of myself doing multiplication fucking times tables and not feeling good, it's like I was just so fixated on the idea that I couldn't get the same answers as my friends, the correct answers, or I couldn't get them fast enough, or there was always these comparisons, like I'm not as smart as this person, or I'm not as strong as this person, I'm not as, athletically inclined, I'm not good at talking to people, I had all those feelings like no one's going to like me. I'm not going to be good at making friends because they're all going to see that I'm not good enough. And basically what it came down to, maybe people won't appreciate the effort that I have to put in because it seems like I have to put in 10 times the effort just to catch up, just to be like everybody else, just to be average. And so no one's going to see that, and no one's going to appreciate my effort. And even if I do succeed, I'm still at the point where I'm burning out because I'm working 10 times harder than anybody else just to keep up. And recently I've just kind of realized that it's like, you kind of have to just appreciate your own effort. Because everyone has their own journey in this world. Everyone has their own things that they're not going to be fucking great at. I'd say I used to think everyone had their own skill set. They have like this one thing that they're really fucking awesome at, and they can just do that thing and not have to worry about anything else. And now I'm realizing more and more as I kind of grow older, and I wouldn't even say that I grow wiser. I just surround myself with smarter people, and they start to explain these things to me. Having mentors in my life and having people that I speak to about these things now, because that was kind of what we spoke about last time, is actually just fucking speaking about these things. I'm learning more and more that it's just about appreciating our own efforts. Because, some people are born with some certain skills that they're just fucking fantastic at. But I think most of us are kind of on the other side. Like, there's just certain things that we just have to work harder for. And it's not up to other people to kind of see you, oh, Mark's fucking really been struggling with this, and now he's getting better and better. Maybe some people are going to notice, but realistically what it comes down to is appreciating your own fucking efforts. Understanding, like, hey, I'm not, gifted with this thing, but I'm getting better, and I'm trying. I'm applying myself. And that's, I could easily look at all my early episodes and even some of my most recent episodes and think, man, I'm not good at making a podcast. I'm really not good at this. I say too many times, or I swear too many times, or I'm not, saying the things that connect with other people so that this message resonates with them. Like, it's easy to kind of beat ourselves up. But at the end of the day, it's also important to start to understand that you have to appreciate your own efforts. Right? Like, I rooted my identity for myself. Like, it was like, a lot of the time it was, as a younger person, as a younger version of myself, it was rooted in like this class clown kind of, I'm never going to fucking try or apply myself or do anything like that. And then I swapped. I went to the other side of the spectrum, which is I'm going to be this super disciplined guy that always fucking puts in effort, always fucking tries, and always, people have to see that I'm this super disciplined person. And that was where my identity got rooted in afterwards. And so I'm still kind of playing with this, and I'm probably going to do an episode on this probably coming up, and just more of these feelings of inadequacy and kind of how I've gone from one end of the spectrum to the other. But what I wanted to speak about most today was just appreciating your own effort. Because I think a lot of us, like I said, we focus a lot on our strengths, or we get fixated on this idea that we should have a strength. A lot of my life, I was kind of like in this headspace of like, everyone seems to have this fucking thing that they're good at, or that they like doing, or that they're passionate about, and I never felt like I had anything like that. For me, it was just kind of like, how can I just skate by and fly under the radar? And maybe no one will notice that I don't have a thing. And it was really difficult for me to kind of start to appreciate my own effort in things because I was so fixated on the end result, and I always compared that end result that I got to someone else's. I'm not understanding I was walking my own journey. And so maybe you've been like this recently, or maybe you've been like this in the past, or maybe this is you right now, not appreciating your own effort. And this isn't, I'm not trying to say this as some fucking foo-foo lame fucking fruity-tooty fucking feel-good bullshit. I'm trying to say this as a constructive way for you to kind of analyze yourself, as I'm having to fucking do right now. Like, I've literally just been sitting here with my fucking notebook, literally just journaling about this shit, page after page after page right now. Just trying to figure out or rack my brain around the idea that it's important to appreciate your own effort. We're not always going to be fucking... to compare fucking my objective result of anything in life to someone else's is not comparing apples to apples. And we always kind of assume that, we always assume that comparison's a legitimate comparison. When really what we should be doing, and it sounds so cliche, you've probably heard this a million times, but instead of comparing ourselves to someone else, we should be comparing ourselves to ourselves. And so, for me, like a past example that I can kind of bring up is, like I said, like we could look at that like 9-year-old kid that I was sitting in math class trying to figure out multiplications and times tables. Maybe I didn't get the answers as quick, or maybe I didn't get the right answers, but, maybe I could reflect at, obviously this isn't fucking possible because I'm not 9 years old anymore. It's been almost 20 fucking years since then, but it's like maybe I could reflect back and say like, hey, yesterday's Mark wasn't very good at this, but today's Mark is, maybe a fucking millisecond faster, but at least there's that. Right? And even in the present, it's like I could look back at some of the podcast episodes I've done and, maybe it's not 100% authentic to who I am. Maybe it's like kind of I've been playing up a role, or fuck, that's actually how I've felt a lot of my life. But, maybe I didn't make an episode that was good enough. Maybe I didn't make... And I'm going to feel this way about this episode. By the time I'm sitting back and editing back to this, literally at this part, I'm going to be thinking, like, why the fuck did I say half this stuff? But hopefully I can remind myself in the future when I'm listening to this that it's okay, and I should just appreciate my own efforts to some degree. Like, it's like, as long as this episode's 1% better than last, and as long as I put in effort to try and make it better. We were talking about asking for help last time when you're struggling with something. Well, that's something I've been trying to do recently with this podcast. And so if you get constructive criticism and you've started to try and apply it, or maybe you've found a gap in your own game and you've tried to think of a new solution. You're like, okay, I'm going to implement this new plan, and maybe it doesn't work at first. What I'm trying to say is, if you can just move in the right direction all the time, and you can understand that, hey, I'm putting in the fucking effort to move into the right direction, even if you're not making leaps and bounds and the progress isn't happening as fast as you want it to. The idea is to just appreciate the effort and enjoy the journey, and just understand that even if I make a fucking perfect episode right fucking now, well, there's got to be a next. There's got to be a next, right? And so it's not like the journey ever ends. It's going to be a constant struggle of, how can I make this, how can I improve this, how can I make this better while still staying true to my authentic self, And maybe this isn't applicable to your life, but I think it could be. Right? Like maybe it seems so specific in like my own head because I'm in my own head right now and it's like I'm just trying to apply this to podcasts, but I think this could be applied anywhere. Right? Like in the gym, it could be applied with discipline, with your meal plan or whatever it is, right? Like there's so many times where we can look back at ourselves and think, man, I fucking failed. I didn't do this as well as I thought I could, or I didn't do this as well as it was expected of me, from someone else or myself or whatever. And it's important to look at those things because some things in this life are objective. Like it's like, did you do it or did you not? Did you complete it or not? I think there's so much value that I've been overlooking in just being able to appreciate the effort that you've put in and say, hey, just to get past this idea, the self-consciousness of people are watching me, I might fail, and to actually be able to fucking put in your all, put in your all and put in 100% of your effort and to actually apply yourself regardless of what could happen. Someone could judge you or you could judge yourself if you fail, or you might fuck up or hurt yourself or whatever it could be. Just to look back and say, like, if we could do away with all of those like kind of self-conscious thoughts and actually apply ourselves to look back and think like, fuck, I actually did try really hard and there was a little bit of improvement and maybe I could do a little bit better next time. And start to appreciate your own efforts and how much you've been putting in, because none of us are flawless, right? Like we're going to be revisiting this all the time. At least I know I am. This feeling of, I wasn't quite good enough. And so I think that a lot of us, especially myself, could be a lot happier in life if we could start to understand how to appreciate our own efforts, how to look back and think, I tried a bit better. I tried to improve, and maybe there was room, maybe there was improvement in certain areas, but we could do better next time. And just having that mindset shift of we could do better next time. We could get better. It's possible. We didn't do it this time, but we could do it better next time. I think it's just so there's something so powerful behind, not getting too confident and not like feeling like, hey, I can't even fail, and not to go to the other side either, but to just to look at an objective. Instead of looking objectively of like, hey, did I complete this fucking task or not? Was I good enough or not? Start to shift more to, did I try or not? Was I giving my all? And I guess that's something that I have to figure out still. It's not something I'm fucking awesome at yet. And so if you got maybe someone out there, maybe if you're listening to this and you've got that figured out, then fuck, we maybe need to connect and you need to come on this show. But I guess this was less of a how-to and more of a fuck, someone tell me how to. Like, we all fucking struggle with certain things. And for me, I've always struggled with kind of appreciating my own effort. And it's kind of blown me back and forth on this weird pendulum of not trying and then always trying and, rooting my identity and being the class clown and then rooting my identity and being this like super disciplined guy. And I'm still trying to find my own identity, but it's hopefully going to be more rooted in the appreciation of my own efforts and not always so fixated on this result that or these like boundaries that we set on ourselves, these rules that we set on ourselves, because that is essentially this weird thing that kind of happens for a lot of us, because we kind of, we have this idea set of like an objective that we have to complete. And then we set kind of rules or frameworks that we have to work within. But half of the time, and this kind of comes back to like the rigidity mindset, the rigid mindset that I've had recently. We set our own boundaries. We set our own framework of where we have to operate within. And we forget that, I forget that we set a lot of these boundaries on ourselves. And the way that we objectively measure ourselves is in our own categories, in our own heads. So maybe that's going to be like a topic coming up soon, this whole like rigid mindset that I'm trying to figure out. I've been journaling through it a lot recently because it's been something I'm struggling with, this identity thing or this mindset thing. But regardless, I wanted to come on here and just kind of share that with you guys and just let you know that, if you've been feeling similarly recently, or if you felt like this in the past, or maybe if you feel like this right now, this feeling of I'm not good enough, I'm not quite good enough yet, or I'm not where I want to be, to just take a step back and actually reflect back and appreciate the effort that you've put in. And maybe you haven't been putting in any effort because you're kind of like how I was before, this kind of class clown. Just kind of like, I'm never going to fucking put in any effort because I'm always going to fail, and I don't want people to know that I'm a failure. Instead, maybe we got to look back and think like, have I been putting in effort? And if you haven't, then it's fucking, you're not alone there, because that's how I lived most of my life. But then start to think, where could I apply myself a bit more? And where could I put in a bit more effort? And to look back at your actions recently and think, if I have been putting in effort and I don't have the result that I want, just having a little bit more compassion and sympathy for ourselves, and just think like, fuck, man, it's okay. You fucking tried. And you did improve in some of these areas that you've been neglecting because you're so fixated on this weird one end goal that you've fucking made yourself obsessed with. I think the goal is not to just be this best version of ourselves, but it's just to get better a little bit more every single day, and to appreciate the effort to get better. Because most of the time, our ego is so fucking big and clouds our perspective, and that we think, and that can be so difficult as well, because we get fixated. We get so hyper-focused sometimes on like, did I get better, or have I gotten worse? And I think a lot of us, we kind of start to undervalue the efforts that we have to just try and improve. And that kind of puts us in a headspace like, maybe I'll never improve. Maybe I'm not even good enough to even try. And I think that, like I said, maybe you haven't been putting in effort, or maybe you have. But just maybe having to reflect back on, have I been trying in this thing? Or have I been kind of thinking there's no point in even putting in effort? And, in a lot of areas of my life, I've been trying to grow or put in effort in certain areas, and purposely making myself too busy with those things subconsciously so that I wouldn't have the time or energy to improve on other things, or put in any effort to improve on other things. So sometimes you have to reflect back and think like, fuck, I do need to put in a little bit more effort. I do need to put, some effort at all into this area. And then sometimes we have to reflect back on, I didn't get the result that I wanted, but I tried. And because I tried and failed, I found more opportunities for myself to, to improve. And then once you start to understand, hey, I could put in effort in these areas, and I saw like a 1% improvement or a 2% improvement, that's where the real confidence building starts, right? When you actually start to see, Because if we were naturally good at everything, it wouldn't even give us confidence. If I could look back at myself and think about all the fucking things that, I didn't feel good enough at, if I was naturally good at them and I just did them, it's not like that would give me confidence. I would just, the first time I came across a struggle or a problem, it would fucking shatter me like it did. And so I think that this, maybe it's found later in life, this confidence that I'm starting to kind of feel now. I think that the only reason I'm starting to is because I know, hey, fuck, I wasn't good at this thing before, and I put in a little bit of effort, and now I'm starting to improve. And that's where the confidence actually lies. It's not in just naturally being good at something. It's being bad at something or not quite where you want to be yet, and then being able to look back at your effort and say, that was me. That was my fucking hard work. That was my blood, sweat, and tears that made me fucking better at that thing. And maybe I can start to apply that in other areas of my life. And so sometimes it's not about just being good at the thing. It's appreciating the effort that you put in to get good at that thing. And that was the fucking misconception I struggled with for so long. So maybe you're like me. Maybe you felt like that before, or maybe you feel like this right now, or fuck, you're going to probably feel like this in the future because these are things that reoccur over and over and over again in our lives. But to just be able to look back at your own effort and appreciate those things. So I'll let you guys sit on that for a bit, maybe ruminate on that, think about that for a while, because I know I will. It's something that I'm going to have to fucking journal about, and this isn't over, so you'll probably hear about this again. But that's all I got. I'm going to let you guys go for now. Again, if you want to join a group or a support group or anything like that, I have one running on Telegram right now. We have weekly Zoom calls as well. So if you want to join that community, whether it's as a mentor or someone that just needs a mentor, or kind of you want to play both roles, that's how most of us do. But yeah, reach out to me. My Instagram is going to be at the bottom of the screen. It's at Mark D. Henriksen. If you're listening to the podcast version, it's in the show notes. It's a weird last name, so good luck fucking spelling it. Reach out to me. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, whatever. If you're listening to the podcast, fucking rate it 5 stars, leave a little review, and tell me how I can improve so I can put in a little bit more effort there. But that's all I got. I hope you, closing out here, a little bit of closing thoughts. I hope you have a good day. If it's the nighttime for you, I don't know when you're listening to this, but I hope you had a good day then. Maybe it's the morning. You better fucking kill it today and put in 100% effort. But that's all I got for you guys. Hope you're doing well. I hope you are putting in effort. If you're not, I hope you're reflecting on that and understanding that that's pretty much how I live 99% of my life. So there's no reason to feel bad or inadequate about the fact that you haven't been putting in effort yet. But it's just identifying like, hey, I haven't been fucking trying in this area yet, and I'm going to start to try. And then you can look back and think, okay, now that I've fucking started to try, I can see these little incremental steps towards improvement. But that is all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much. I'm going to jump off here and start eating because I'm fucking starving. But that's all I got. Thank you so much. Much love and peace out.